and they'll go on dying, drowning in despair. They'll go on crying. It's unless we care. There are godless people out there who have lost their way. And if we close our eyes, perhaps they'll go away without you, without me, and without Christ. This week begins what the Salvation Army calls Cultural Awareness and Reconciliation Week. And Mrs. Harp asked me after Wednesday's rehearsal, what are you speaking on Sunday? Because that song is such a difficult song to sing. And what are you going to follow it with? And I said cultural awareness, which is what we're talking about, and it sounds rather incongruous, but if you will stick with me this morning, I think you'll see exactly how that song talks about cultural awareness. If you look up a definition of culture, it says an integrated pattern of human knowledge, belief, and behavior of a particular group. Typically, when we think of culture, we think of nationality and race and where people come from and how they act in the country from which they came. But culture can apply to any group. Culture does apply to nationalities. It applies to organizations, cities, churches, communities. There's also cultures within specific groups. There's subcultures, and we have homeless cultures. Some of us understand exactly what that means. We have business culture. Many of us work, and there's a specific culture within our organization. And each business is different. You go to Home Depot, and it's a different culture than perhaps working at Lowe's. And even in a city like this, we have many different national cultures. We have Hispanic cultures, and we have people that were born and raised in America, and we have African American cultures. We have all these cultures that have mixed together. And so when we talk about culture, we're not just talking about people from other countries. And when I say I want you to be culturally aware, I'm not saying I want you to be sensitive to the people that come here from other countries and the fact that they have different practices and beliefs and behaviors where they come from. Because regardless of your culture, whatever it may be, whatever culture you find yourself in today, every single one of us are people of God. And every single one of us deserve the love of God. And that's why we read from Matthew 22 this morning. And Jesus' reply to this teacher is not something that he just made up. And we've talked about this before. He takes it straight from Leviticus, something that the Jewish people would have understood because they say it every day. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. And he says to love your neighbor as yourself. And so when you think about the song that the songster sang, the pictures that you saw, those people need you. They need me. And they need Christ. They need the love of God. William Booth had a goal, and as we go through those pictures, the one of the prisoners strikes me because it brings me back to the often quoted "I'll fight" speech. Prisoners going in and out, in and out. He's going to fight. Well, what was he fighting for? What was William Booth's goal? He wanted to win the world for Christ. That was his goal. Everything that he did with the aim of winning the world for Christ. And it would be a little unrealistic for me to tell you, you need to win the world for Christ. But it's not at all unrealistic to tell you that your job is to win your culture for Christ. Whether it's your business culture, whether it's your family culture, whether it is the Dallas Temple culture, each and every one of you has the job of winning your culture for Christ. For me, I look at it and I say, my job as a Salvation Army officer stationed at the Dallas Temple Corps is to win Dallas for Christ. And so I have to sit down and look at what I have planned for the coming year and say, do each of these projects that I want to do work towards winning Dallas for Christ? And if you're a soldier of the Dallas Temple Corps, it is my fervent desire that you would support me in that goal. And at times that's just going to mean praying for me because it's a tough job. At times that's going to mean sacrificing your time and coming alongside me and participating in some of these projects. And many of you are very good at that, and we appreciate the soldiers of the Dallas Temple Corps. But Booth's goal was to win the world for Christ. My goal is to win Dallas for Christ. You have to decide for yourself, what is it, what culture, what group, what organization, what individual person do you want to win for Christ? You've got to understand where that person or that group is coming from. And you've got to find a way to show them God's love. And I think we do a great job of showing God's love to each other. And I'm sure that many of you do a great job of showing God's love outside these walls. But wouldn't it be great if we all banded together and found some special groups, perhaps here in Dallas? You know, we do a great job with Little Mexico, but we want to expand on that. We want to reach other people. This is a difficult thing for me to talk about and to think about, but when we first arrived in Dallas, I asked the question, what is the best thing about Dallas Temple? And almost without hesitation, the answer was music. And I'll agree, music is amazing here at Dallas Temple. And the song that the songster just sang wouldn't have had the impact if we didn't have such a wonderful songster group. And we have a wonderful band. But I would love, when anybody asks, what's the best thing about Dallas Temple? Somebody would say, man, they're winning their community for Christ. They are showing God's love in all that they do. That's what I would like to hear about Dallas Temple. Coming back around to this idea of cultural awareness, I couldn't help but be directed to Galatians 3. And right at the end, it says, so in Christ Jesus you are all children of God through faith. For all of you who were baptized into Christ have clothed yourself with Christ, and there is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free, nor is there male or female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. I pondered that this week, and I said, this is great because it's talking about the believers, and it says, once you're with Christ, there is no difference regardless of what your background is, regardless of your culture or your gender or your race, there's no difference. But then I got to thinking, I said, what's the difference before we're believers? Is there a difference? And honestly, I don't believe there is. Because when it comes down to whether or not somebody deserves the love of God, there is neither prostitute nor nun. There is neither gay nor straight. There is neither thief nor legitimate businessman. Because every single person deserves the love of Christ. I'm still very much in this New Year's mode. And one of the things that I have to do after the kettle season is to go back and look at my budget based on what we brought in on kettles and maybe revise a few things and figure out, how much did we bring in and where can we spend this money? And as I look at that and I say, how is Dallas Temple spending our money? And is as much as possible of our money going towards winning Dallas for Christ? And so my wife and I have discussed many ideas. I've sat down with the area commander and he has approved a couple of things. My wife and I are going to strive very hard, and there's actually some wonderful people in this Corps that can support us in this. My wife and I are going to work very hard to learn Spanish. Because there's a lot of Hispanic people in Dallas, especially in our direct area, and we want to be able to communicate with them. We want to be able to share the gospel message with them. And so that's one of the things we want to do. There's a lot of businesses in Dallas. And the Salvation Army has always been known for going for the down and out, but if we're going to win Dallas for Christ, that includes everybody. And so we want to get more involved with the business people in Dallas, because some of them are every bit as lost as the homeless person. And we can reach those people, and they might be able to help us as well. In the long run, they may be able to support the work of the Salvation Army. Those are ways that my wife and I want to work to win Dallas for Christ in the coming year. And again, we just hope that you guys are willing to support us in that. We have some amazing programs that are going on that are going to continue. We've had a very generous volunteer step up that is going to work with our kids on Bible Bowl and make sure that they're familiar with their scriptures, so that when we go to youth councils, we can kick everybody else out of this Bible Bowl thing and win, which is great. But I'm more excited about the fact that our kids are going to know the scriptures. And as they learn these scriptures, I hope that they just are wrapped up in this idea of God's love and what it means to them and what it means when you have an opportunity to share God's love with other people. And that's why I had the scriptures, the Great Commandment and the Great Commission read this morning, because if you have that fabulous grasp of God's love and what it means to you, then you're a whole lot more interested in making sure that other people find out about it. And I go back to this idea that I heard many years ago, that, and especially with the way technology is booming, it works very well, but imagine you found out about this new technology that made your life so much easier, or made you feel so much better, or it was a life changer for you. You would want to go and tell other people. And I want God's love to be so strong in your life that you can't help but go and tell other people. We have so many ways to communicate these days with phones and texting and the internet, with Facebook and Twitter. So many ways to communicate. We've got to find a way to identify the cultures that are within our influence, the cultures that we can affect, and go after them as if, and it is the most life-changing thing that's ever happened to us. Win those cultures for Christ. So when we talk about cultural awareness, I don't necessarily want you to think it's good to be aware of other countries and things going on overseas, but be aware of the vast number of cultures that are within your sphere of influence. And think about what you can do to win that culture for Christ. We have an amazing section in our songbook, and it is absolutely my favorite section. And it starts with song number 824, and the section is called "The World for God." It was Booth's goal. He wanted to win the world for God. And he went after it. Many of you will know how quickly the Salvation Army grew in its early years and how quickly it spread to so many different countries. And when I get those emails from headquarters that says, "We've just opened the Army in a new country," it's so exciting for me because we are winning the world for God. I was blown away when they said, "We're going into Kuwait." I'm like, they're going to let us go to Kuwait? It's amazing to think of what the Salvation Army is doing. But they can't do it if every part of the Salvation Army isn't gung-ho about it. We're going to sing in a few minutes, "Christ for the World," and it's a contemporary version, but it comes right out of our songbook. Christ for the world we sing, the world to Christ we bring with loving zeal. Who? Who do we bring? The poor and those who mourn, the faint and the overborne, the sin-sick and the sorrow-worn, the wayward, the lost, by restless passions tossed, redeemed at countless cost. We don't need to keep track of our sacrifices and what we have to do in order to win the world for God. We just need to go out there and do it. We've got some great instructions right here on what we need to do. In addition to being a great songbook, it's a great devotion book. It's a great motivational book. I just want to take a few moments to pray with you. For those that are, the altar is always available.